Hi, folks. Welcome to the Creative Nomad, presented by TrueAwesomeLife.com. I'm your host, JP Adkins, and I created this podcast because I want to tell the stories of the radicals, the ones who are out there making the world a better, more beautiful place. The amazing authors, artists, musicians, thought leaders, coaches, and yes, nomads who are out there living their true awesome lives and want to help others do the same. Are you ready to live your true awesome life? Go to TrueAwesomeLife.com and start your journey today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Nomad. Today, I am so excited because we are here with Vanja, and she's just such an amazing human. I would love for you to introduce yourself, Vanja. Hello?
Hello. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I got
Okay.
it. I got it now.
Awesome. So, just wanted to have you introduce yourself.
Yes, sure. So, my name is Vanja Beric. I'm a counselor. I'm in Australia. And so I work with women specifically in finding the self-belief, in finding their voice, and just themselves in general.
Awesome. So, what made you want to go into working with women in Australia?
Well, obviously, working with women, being a woman, it's something that I know. It's something that resonates with me, where I find, there's specific issues that may impact us women more than I guess the rest of the population. And I know what it's like to live with anxiety, depression, trauma, and all of that stuff, and I know how it can impact a person. So that's what drove me to help others, because when I saw my own transition, I saw the life that, I guess, the difference pre and post counseling. So I just wanted to do that for others and have an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I know that part of your story is that you came from a war-torn country,
Yes.
so and was a refugee over in to Australia. You know, first off, that must have been very traumatizing. Like, you were very young when that happened. Talk to me a little bit about that transition. What's it like to, really see things that you've known and having to let that go and moving forward?
Yes, yeah. When Because I was 11 when we came here, and I guess I had a very little understanding of, thinking about it now. There was big changes at the time, but I had a very little understanding of what was going on, and why are we moving? Because I was five when the war started, so the war was majority of my life up until that point. So I just thought everyone lived like that.
Yeah.
You know how it is in whatever um, atmosphere you're in, wherever scenario you're in, you just assume everyone lives like that.
Hmm.
So it was very strange when we came here, and it was a big cultural shock. One of the things that I always say is the first 2 weeks when we came to Australia, even though we came from a war-torn country where it was obviously very dangerous and things like that, our parents, because I have two siblings, they wouldn't let us out of the house for the 2 weeks because they were so scared that, you know, Australia would be so unsafe.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was that of a culture shock. No language, no idea where you are, just kind of plucked from somewhere and planted, and you flourish, you grow. And I guess I didn't start seeing the impact of everything until everything sort of started to settle down. We settled down a little bit. It's once you get out of that survival mode, and there is no longer danger, that you start seeing the side effects of everything. When you stop running,
Hmm.
that's when you start feeling, and then that's when everything starts hitting you, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that, talk to me a little bit about the challenge with that. I mean, you didn't, you didn't come from an English speaking country, I take it.
No. Yeah, no,
So,
no.
just trying to learn to communicate must have been a big challenge, you know.
It was, it was easier for me because again, I was, as kids we pick up language quite easy.
Mhm.
One of the things that I had a challenge of, so I started studying English for about 6 months prior to us leaving, so I knew very little.
Okay.
But it was more so for my parents, because we couldn't go to the doctors, we couldn't do anything because we had to have an interpreter with us. And when I started picking up English, I was that interpreter. So I went very quickly, had to go everywhere with my parents to interpret. And then, me having myself a very limited, um, you know, words to say and to ways to express and not understanding anything. Um, I struggled in that. But most people who have first generation refugee parents know that, and know that struggle of it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter whether you have homework or you want to hang out with friends, if you have to go to the bank, you have to go to the doctor, or even to the grocery store, you have to go with your parents. You can't, that's your obligation. It doesn't matter how old you are. So it made me grow up very quickly, just having
Yeah.
all of that responsibility, and having to read all the letters and pay all the bills because they didn't know, and things like that.
Yeah. I've talked to other first generation um, people that migrated first generation, and their parents didn't know the language very well. And I grew up in Dearborn, just outside Dearborn, and have a lot of people that were Arabic speaking, and have friends that were their parents still can't speak English, and it's like, yeah. So, they were the ones that had to grow up, and like
Yeah.
really, you don't see the impact of that. But how do you believe that helped you to where you are now?
Um, well, in terms of help me, I think obviously the having to take responsibility. I didn't necessarily worry about where the money was going to come from paying the bill, but I knew, what paying the bill was. I knew what reading the letters for was, and things like that. And having very quickly, I remember again, this was like the first couple of months with once we came to Australia, and then someone has come to our house to help us with something. Um, and I had to translate, and there was a word that I didn't know how to say, and I was like, oh my god. So we had, and this was back in the 90s, so we had the dictionary,
Hmm.
the actual book, and I would flip through the dictionary. I was like, that word plus that word, that like, work with me, this is what I'm trying to tell you, kind of thing. uh, Going off of what my parents are telling me, and just that that quick thinking, kind of a way to figure out a problem, that there is no scenario where there's no solution, kind of thing, that there's always a way out, there's always a choice, there's always an option. I don't think I realized how much those situations helped me, because you did have to think creatively, and in the moment when you wanted something, even if it was at the grocery store, you didn't know how to say something, so thinking creatively, how do I explain this thing to
Hmm.
this person, but I
Yeah.
need it, but I also don't know what it's called, and there's no phone to Google it. So
Right. I mean, people don't understand. It's actually funny that brings up a story that I have. I worked at this coffee house for a bit, and they had just opened in Ann Arbor, and they were Arabic. And they brought me in because I had run coffee houses before, and I
mhm.
knew what I was doing. Well, they were, just immigrated, and fresh off the boat, as they say here, right?
Yeah.
There, and so the one cook couldn't speak English at all, and the manager, who was always translating, and we weren't very busy yet. It was just open, this whole brand new place kind of thing, and the owner manager goes to the bank real quick because we haven't been busy. And
Yeah,
as soon as he left, we got like 8 people came in.
of
And
course, yes.
of course they want food, right?
Yeah,
Because like I could do the whole thing. Like, let's go, but I can't make at this point. I didn't understand what a chicken shawarma was.
yeah.
To like go, yeah, let's do chicken shawarma. And so I'm trying to explain this to the guy, right? And I'm like pointing at and he's like, he doesn't read English yet either. So it was like I couldn't point at the menu. And finally I just went, "Baka!" like that.
That's exactly.
And he goes, oh, and pointed like went to the chicken. And
Yeah,
if you've ever worked in at an Arabic restaurant when they've actually taken the shawarma, like the chicken, the meat really doesn't look all that different.
yeah,
Now I can go. Now I know. Now I know the difference. You can look at it. I could point. Like I could have pointed, so I could actually point it. But I couldn't even point at it then. Like
yes,
it
yes.
was, and I wasn't taught anything in the kitchen at all. Like
Mm,
it was really weird. Like had looking back, had I had been taught some of the kitchen stuff, I would have been able to at least go and point at it, or I could have went and made it myself, or I could have done all kinds of other things instead of cluck
yeah,
like a chicken. So,
but those are the scenarios sometimes we're put in with very limited resources. It's just there's nothing there, and then you have to think on your feet. You have to figure it out and kind of go out of your comfort zone, and that's what we did. That's for anyone who has come to a country where they don't speak English or where they don't speak the language, you get very creative and you start, producing weird noises, and it is very like that's why I always talk with my hands, because you're kind of like this, I want this.
yeah, yeah. So working with women and having that background is probably amazing because you have this innate sense of outsiderness, right?
Mm.
So how has that helped you in your practice with other women?
Yeah, well, look, I grew up. So where I'm from is Yugoslavia, and I very much grew up in kind of where men were considered, um, I guess, to be higher than women, and I think a lot of people, unless you've even in Western countries, I think a lot of it resonates with a lot of people. But in other countries, that is very much the case, and just having to work, coming to Australia and not, none of that being displayed here, but still having that mindset, still having that belief, and how to overcome that. How do we be okay with being a woman? How do we be okay, and just kind of subtle expectancies the society puts on us, that we put on ourselves, and things like that we work through. When the feminist movement came out, it was a very much big difference.
Mhm.
Women stayed at home, men were out, making the money, I guess, and there was very little. They had very little power and very little say in their life. And of course, we have come so far from that, but now these are subtle, not so obvious things that shape our life.
Mhm.
And you can't, it's not something that's so obvious that you can go, well, it's that. And I'm sure men go through the same thing. I've worked with men before in my private practice, and I can see that with men as well, where the struggle of expressing emotion and working through whatever it is, and having that tough facade.
Mhm.
um, so we certainly, both sexes have that. They have their own conditioning and their own belief about who they should be, how life should be, and things like that.
Yeah, it's really a challenge. I mean, I was just having a conversation about this the other day with on another podcast about balancing that masculine and feminine.
Mm.
Um, it is such a hard thing, and even more so now, right? Because as you know, when the rules were very defined,
Yeah.
they may not have been fair, but they were defined,
Yes.
right? So when you didn't have to worry about what that looked like, it was just a defined thing, and this is what it was.
Mm.
Well, now that those definitions are gone, And now that we have to kind of work, but we still have the expectations without that, right? So
Yes,
we have the thousands of years of conditioning behind. Now that rule doesn't apply.
exactly. Yes. So it's not, and when I say this, sometimes people don't, I guess their reaction is, well, we don't live in that type of world. Of course we don't, but we do have, as you say, they're not so obvious now, and they're, the same rules apply, or a smaller version of those rules apply, but there are still rules
Hmm.
that we are living and all trying to fit into,
Hmm.
and figuring out, as you said, it was defined before. So not, obviously everyone had their own struggles, but it was kind of like you knew your place, you knew, you know, where you
Hmm.
sat. Today is now figuring out, okay, so I have no boundaries outside, I have boundaries inside, which I'm not necessarily aware of. So where do I sit now? Who am I now? Which I think a lot of people struggle with finding that. Who am I?
Hmm. Definitely. And then, it's funny. So much of this week, I've been in that space, right? So
Mhm.
that people talking to people that didn't know that, right?
Yes.
And dealing with my own struggles with that, right? So I'm balancing a lot of the masculine and feminine anyways, and taking stories of that I've created for me and stories that have been told to me,
Yes.
and
Yep.
trying to reintegrate other aspects that and prove them wrong, prove the stories wrong, right? And
Yes.
choosing which stories they are. And this week, I just got a couple really disturbing things I'm going to be talking about a lot around that. But I had two really disturbing conversations, and one was basically that one person thought they weren't worthy unless they were having sexual intercourse, and another one of my friends tried to commit suicide last night. So
Wow.
I'm coming into the space of like knowing that it's so important, the work that you do, and although you're working with women, and I'm realizing more and more that there's this need that needs to be done, and there's work that I need to do
Mm.
in that space. Um, so I get it is what I guess at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I'm trying to say, because I'm not sure where that was going, but I get it. And I'm really raw today, so I want to apologize because I'm raw. I like literally at 10 o'clock I found out my friend tried to commit suicide. So
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm processing, and I'm dealing, and I'm moving through. So I want to apologize to anyone outside that thinks that, oh, he's a little down today. I'm not necessarily down. I'm just processing. He's going to be fine. He's amazing. And I'm actually going to go out there a little bit later today. But how parallel that conversation is to the conversation of not knowing where you fit.
Yes. Well, because that's, I guess, where all of that depression and it comes from. Because the one thing that I constantly saw in my clients is, again, that parallel, that thing that ties us together, is loneliness.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily, and I think that I want to say that everyone has experienced it at some point.
Mhm.
We all know what loneliness feels like. um, and just this idea of it won't get better,
Yeah.
and that, that is a scary thought. But what I love about what you just said, and what you're just displaying there, is that rawness, is that vulnerability, and meeting yourself where you are. So not trying to brush it down, or not trying to, this is what I'm feeling today, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. And that is so powerful, because that's what we of course feel lonely because we don't feel the support of other people, but we also feel lonely because we have feelings and we don't know what to do with them, and we don't support ourselves.
Hmm.
And that's, and that amplifies that I feel so alone. And being able to sit with those feelings and sit in the mess of it all is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it's so, yeah, and I mean, that to me is the strongest thing a person can do.
Yeah, I think
That's
that the problem is that I think that a lot of people hear this, they've listened to The Secret and they've done this and they've done that, and they hear all this toxic, what I like to call toxic positivity,
mm,
right? That if you aren't yay all the time, right, things aren't moving for you. But the problem with being up all the time is that you're not dealing with. So I could go in and I could talk about how wonderful my life is and how great things are and how that I can be a solution for people on that level, right? And so literally I started writing an outline of a program that I'm going to end up doing because I realize I am being called, right?
yeah,
I'm being called to do a program that I know I need to do. How do I make it work for the people that actually need it?
okay,
And I can talk about all that, right? But in the background of that is that I'm processing the fact that two of my really good friends are feeling like absolute shit,
yeah,
and that they are dealing with that otherness that they didn't feel that they could express to anyone,
yeah,
right? And what does that look like when we heal that, when we can have that community? And I think that COVID hurt this, amplified that by 1,000. I think that there are parts of the population that definitely deal with that otherness also, and it's getting better, but isn't there yet. And there's a lot of people that deal with this internal hatred of themselves.
oh yes, yeah,
So, why, as the only way to heal that is to see that.
yes, and absolutely. And that awareness is half the job, whether it's hatred or it's fear or it's whatever it is just seeing that, um, and starting to chip at it and kind of, peeling the layers back. Because
Yeah,
that what I strive for and what I say to my clients is to see your radiance. And that radiance is having that freedom and having just, not positivity, but love,
yeah,
you know. And sometimes that love is painful. And, and sometimes, love is, it comes in all shapes and sizes. But it's those rules and, that loneliness, those feelings of hatred, feelings of fear or whatever it is, they do feel like shackles, or they feel like cage that you're stuck in. And
yeah,
then working through that and healing piece by piece is what gives you liberty, and it gives you that belief in yourself that no matter what happens, I can handle it.
yeah,
And it takes away from that, or it brings you closer to yourself and closer to who you truly are, and further away from that loneliness and isolation. And it gives you that power to sit with your feelings and being able to be okay with whatever it is that you're feeling, and not apologizing for a single thing.
yeah. I mean, I think that we have. So one of the things that we live in is this binary system, right? It's good
Mm,
or bad.
yeah, yeah,
And so as we deal with all of it in life, we want to label it good or bad, no matter what
yes,
that looks like, right? And really, there is no good or bad. It either
It's
works
just,
or it doesn't.
yeah. As Shakespeare said, yes, just that. There's no such thing as good or bad. Thinking makes it so,
They can
and
make it
that
so.
is, yeah, 100%. We moved from, obviously, negative thinking has an impact on our brain, has an impact on even our body, digestive system, and things like that.
Mhm.
But we think the antidote to negative is positive because it is the other side.
Yeah.
But there, there's the third option, which, this is where I guess where the magic happens, is that in between, and not having to label it, judge it, or anything. It just is. It's kind
Yeah.
of like trying to describe a sunset for someone who's never seen a sunset.
Mhm.
You possibly couldn't, and you couldn't label it good or bad. It's just, there is so much to it. There's so many notions, and there's so much power to it that you just have to be there and experience it. And that's where the magic is. And it's the same with our emotions.
Yeah. And they're fleeting. So
Yeah,
the thing that we have to remember about emotions is that they go away. Actually,
absolutely.
if you stop and just feel it, it will go through your body if you don't rewind it in 15 seconds.
What if you're running, if something is chasing you and you're running away, it's going to try. So what we resist persists, so it's going to try and chase us harder. And this is why there's emotions, because we keep running away. It's kind of like we're in a pool and we have all of those blow up balls, that you play with in the pool. And
Mhm.
if each one of them in different sizes represent our emotions, and we just spend so much time trying to keep them down, not to be seen. But it takes so much energy, and then you take your eye off of one of them, and they fly springing up, and that's where that explosion is.
Yeah.
But just allowing them to rise up on their own and just kind of go, that's there. That's part of, it's not necessarily part of me, but it's just there. It's in my life. I don't have to label it, give it anything. It just is.
Yeah. And it's not me.
Yeah, it's just part of life. Everybody experiences it. One of the things that I say, and I share my story often, is to reiterate with people, and not just to inspire, but really to reiterate to people that there's nothing special about me. There's nothing, I had no really, no special power, no special nothing to say that, she could do it, she could work through whatever it is, abuse and war and all of these things, all of this trauma, but I can't. There really isn't anything special about me. And here's the truth that many people don't want to hear, but there's nothing special about any of us. We're all just human, and we're all just here to live this life in, whatever it means to us. And so just being okay, starting to grasp that feeling
Yeah.
that we're just human. We're not perfect, we're not anything, we're just human, and letting go of that specialness.
Yeah. You not only, or flip that, you're very special, but so is everybody else.
Mm,
So it's not that you're not special. It's just that you're not any more special than someone else. It's just in a different way, in a unique way, because
yeah,
we are all unique and we're all the same. It's one of those like things, right?
and it's the thing
Um,
that connects us all. Yes.
mhm. Yeah, I one of the things that I really love is Alan Watts says we are all God playing hide and seek. So as we uh, as we look at each other, we can see each other as divinity,
Mm,
and we can realize that we, are there, forgetting that we are the divine.
yes. Yep.
And as we return, we return. and we wake, what they call waking up, right? We wake
Yeah.
up and we realize, oh, wow. But so are you. So that doesn't make me, although I am God, that doesn't make me special because so are you.
Yes, exactly. And so, and that's and again, I guess that's the connection between all of us, and then taking it further between everything on this planet is that we don't live in duality. That there isn't, we're all worthy of love. We're all worthy of, and we're also worthy of pain, which. Again, is something that a lot of people struggle with, but it's pain that makes us shift, and it's pain that makes us pivot, and it's pain that changes us, and we should change and we should grow. So through the love and through the pain, we're all connected and interconnected, and we all kind of experience the same thing. I certainly noticed this in my clients so many times. People from all walks of life, all different ages, different genders, like different as they would come, and yet it's still expressing the same pain, still expressing the same. On the outside, it looks completely different. But then when you get down to it, it's those 3, 4, 5 core emotions that, that all swirl around in there. And again, that is what connects us, and that's what I love working with, because it's those core emotions that influence us.
Exactly. Vanja, it has been amazing speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is Vanja Beric, VanjaBeric.com, and on there you can find out my social media, so Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And I also have a community for women called Radiant Women, and it's just working through exactly what we talked about today. It's just finding that being okay in our as-isness, being okay in who we are and what we are, and all one step at a time, and it never stops. We never stop learning, we never stop growing. So
never. Thank you. Make sure you check her out. And folks, if you are struggling, there are hotlines all over. I will try to place one up there, but reach out.
Yeah.
Okay, just reach out, because it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And it will be okay. It will. This too shall pass. Whatever it is you're going, because you've been in pain before and you've been happy before, and it passed.
It passed. And I have the guide, and I'm like, even as I think about, go to trueawesomelife.com. You can pick up how you can live your true awesome life now, even if the circumstances suck. And it walks you through some things that may be able to take you off the edge. Like just a little bit. Just take that one step back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking about, again, I said it right, those little micro steps. It's not about taking the big lead, just thinking about how you can move it just a little bit.
Exactly. All right, folks, thank you so much for being here. I love you all. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Nomad Show. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, go to creativenomadshow.com. There's also a link at the bottom. If you are a radical and would like to be a guest, you can apply to be on the show there. Thanks again, and know that you are loved. Awesome Life, we look for the world changers who want to live in creativity, authenticity, and profitability whenever, wherever. So check out trueawesomelife.com and let's get started.